Greetings, Fire Chargers, Darkblade here. In this video, we will explore some evidence for the historicity of the biblical narrative of Abraham. This comes from chapter 14 of the book of Genesis. Verse 1 says, "At the time when Amraphel was king of Shinar, Arioch king of Elasar, Chedorlaomer king of Elam, and Tidal king of Goyim," which means nations. Let's just go to verse 2 to complete the sentence. "These kings went to war against Bera king of Sodom, Bersha king of Gomorrah, Shinab king of Admah, Shemeber king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela," that is Zor. Now, the Hebrew word here used to spell out Amraphel's name are Aleph, Mem, Resh, Pe, Lamed. Keep in mind that the letter Pe can make either a P or an F sound. So, Amraphel is described as being king of Shinar, which is the region around Babylon. So, one relevant piece of chronological information, this lets us know where in a time to look for the evidence for Abraham, is with his great-grandson Joseph. Joseph was made a very powerful man, the vizier of Egypt, according to Genesis 41 verses 39 to 45. Alright. We know that he was 30 years old in Genesis 41-46. And here Joseph is described as riding a chariot in this passage, specifically in verse 43. Now, chariots were introduced to Egypt during the 15th dynasty, the Hyksos, who, according to Egyptologist David Falk in page 5 of his book, The Ark of the Covenant in its Egyptian Context, an Illustrated Journey, reigned from 1666 to 1520 BC. Let's know that Joseph became vizier of Egypt no earlier than 1666 BC, since he rides a chariot at the beginning of his tenure. Now, Joseph is 30 at this point. 9 years later, his father Jacob is described as being 130 in, where is it? I am looking for the verse. Genesis 47:9. "And Jacob said to Pharaoh, The days of the years of my sojourning are 130 years. Few and evil have been the days of the years of my life, and they have not attained to the days of the years of the life of my fathers in their sojourning." So that lets us know that he's 130 at this point. So 9 years earlier, when his son began his tenure, he would have been 121. That means that Jacob was born no earlier than 1666 plus 121 is 1787 BC, adding 60 years for Isaac and another 100 for Abraham. Lets us know that Abraham was born at the earliest 1947 BC. However, it is possible that the ages provided in the patriarchal narratives are not literal, and we might need to have to shave off a few decades. So let me account for that by, let's say, subtracting 40 plus 60. Let's account for that possibility by acting 60 years from Jacob, pushing his date of birth possibly as early as 1727 BC, and Abraham and Abraham's would be pushed up to, what is it? At 60, so that would be 1887, and Isaac's as 1787. Now let's perhaps subtract another 40 years from Abraham, potentially pushing him up, his date of birth, up to around 1747 BC. Now, since the War of the Plain Cities happened, that's what's going on in Genesis 14, happened between the times of Abraham being about 75 and 86. This lets us know that I'll pause it and unpause when the math is done. So I'm done with the math, and the time frame that we should look at to find the evidence, if it's there, is somewhere between 1872 and 1761 BC. Now, the question is, was there a Babylonian king who reigned at some point in this time frame whose name was similar to Amraphel? That begins with a guttural in ancient Hebrew. That's an aleph, het, che, or ayin. Next it is an M. Next is an R. Fourth is a P or F, and that last fifth letter doesn't actually need to match because as it might have been tacked on in order to avoid certain things that Hebrew doesn't like. For example, words ending in vowels. Now let's go to the Babylonian kings list and scroll all the way back up. Let me see. First king, Sumabum, reigned too early. So let's look for a So we're looking for someone who reigned in the first dynasty, that's the Amorite dynasty. Let me see. It's definitely not any of these S names. So Sumuabum, Sumalael, Sabum, Sinmubalit, Shamsu-Iluna, or Shamsu-Ditana. Now, Hammurabi is actually, this one is actually a good fit, Hammurabi. It's, in fact, it starts with, I think it starts with the equivalent of a het, of a hay or het. In the Amorite language, it even starts with an ayin, which is in the Amorite version of the name, it starts with an ayin, which is, in both ayin and aleph are gutturals, and it even starts with an H guttural in the Ugaritic version. So we have that, and the M, the R, and the P. So we have a king of the right place, is who reigned in the roughly the right ballpark of time with with roughly the right name. To me, that seems to be evidence for the historicity of the narrative.